today I bring you my November wrap-up. Not gonna lie, not a good reading month. Tell you that now. Firstly, I read The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbary. I have done a full review of this, which I will link down below if you want to know a bit more. All I will say here really is that I loved this book. Elegance sums it up perfectly. A quick overview is that this is about a sort of house in Paris. We follow predominantly two characters, which is Renee, the concierge of the house, and it's basically split into flats, so there's a lot of different families there. Renee oversees this, and she lives in the bottom flat. And we also follow, I think, Paloma, who is a daughter of one of the families. We predominantly follow Renee, but Paloma's chapters pop up here and there, and I have to say they were my favourites. This is just a very elegant, gentle, philosophical book about both of their views on life, and also a lot about class issues and sort of class divides. Obviously Renee is a lower class woman working and living in this upper class house, and it's a beautiful, very elegant book, and I would recommend it to anybody. Then I think predominantly the reason that this month has been a bad reading month, I read A Feast of Crows by George R.R. Martin. I mean, I did drop it in the bath, so it's a bit puffier than it was, but this is how thick this book is. Yeah, this is number 5 in the Song of Ice and Fire series. I can't really say much about the series at this point because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who isn't reading it or watching it, but yeah, I did enjoy this. I did. The thicker ones I find quite hard work, and I mean this is over 800 pages long. I think, no, just under 800 pages long, and the writing's not big. I mean, there's quite a lot of writing to a page. It's still enjoyable. It was just a chore, and it took me over 2 weeks to get through, which I hate. It wasn't just the fault of this book, though. I think I was kind of in a reading blur at the time as well, which didn't help when reading a book this thick. But, you know, it was enjoyable. I have to say this, for those of you who have read the series or know the characters, this book is sort of split. This one and the next one are split, so they run parallel to each other, but this is what goes on with sort of characters like Cersei, Jane. We see a bit of Arya and Sansa, but not a whole load. So we follow more the sort of King's Landing, I think it's called, point of view. And the next book is where we get sort of Jon Snow, Tyrion, and the characters we love. Daenerys is in there as well, so we didn't see those characters in this book, which going into it, if I had known that, I would have been like, oh, because they're my favourite characters, and I think there are characters in this that you sort of get to their chapters and think, oh. But I actually still enjoyed this. It was still a good read, and I still liked the characters that I was reading from. I'm really liking Jaime at the moment. He's just, in the first book he was an absolute idiot, but the last few books he's been growing in my estimations. I quite like him now. But this doesn't follow any of the sort of stable favourites, which is a risky move, but I think it might have paid off, and I think the next one will be really good. Another thing that happened in this that doesn't happen in any of the others is that we had chapters from characters that weren't necessarily, like, they weren't named. Normally at the start of the chapter it's got the name of the character. It would just say like the Prophet or the King of the Iron Sea or something like that. And as we were reading, it's characters that we've heard about before that weren't necessarily in our... So I was using the sort of reference at the back of who everyone is to sort of follow who they were. But things are kicking off and more people are coming forward for the throne, and I think they're not named because they're not necessarily going to be prevalent characters, but they did have a chapter each sort of thing, which was quite interesting and kept things fresh, and it was quite fun working out who everyone was and what their part and things were. So that was different. But yeah, it's long and it took ages. Then my library read for the month was Don DeLillo's The Body Artist. I was going to say a novel then, but that's not what it's called. The Body Artist. This is only thin, and to be honest with you, the writing is huge and there's barely any of it to a page. I read this in about an hour, which I needed after The Beast that I had just read. This is quite a sweet little book. It reminded me a lot of how a short story would be written, and it is effectively. I mean, it obviously falls into the category of a novel to be called a novel, but it's a novella stroke short story, I would say. And it was just quite sweet. It basically is about this woman's grief for her husband and kind of finding out, well, she had a funny relationship with him anyway, kind of finding out that she didn't really know him and how she deals with her grief, and there's sort of supernaturally elements in there as well. And it's just a sweet little book, and it's got some quite interesting views on art as well, so that's definitely worth a read for just a short one. Then the final book I read was Kiss Me First by Lottie Mogak. This has been on my shelf for ages. It's about 2 years since people were sort of chatting about this book, and I have to say, I don't think anyone did it justice. Now, I will say why. This isn't like a massively spectacular literary achievement, but I needed something easy and light and just enjoyable to read after the month I'd had of reading that hadn't gone so well. So this was the ideal thing to pick up. I had this in my mystery thriller section on my shelf, and the reason I had this on my mystery thriller section is that people sort of made it out to be that, and also on the back it sort of implies that there's a mystery to be solved. I didn't find it that at all. I am going to tell you stuff that you might think is a spoiler, so if you're really anti-spoilery, I mean, it's not really a spoiler. I don't consider it a spoiler, and I think if I'd known it, I would have picked this up sooner. But if you really are sensitive to that kind of thing and completely don't want to know, then turn off now, bye-bye. But for this, it's about a girl called Layla, who we never know exactly how old she is. I think she's about 23, 24. And she lives quite a sheltered life. Her mum has had MS and died, and Layla has got no friends. She doesn't leave the house because she works from home for a technological company, and she's quite a sad character. The portrait of her is quite sad. She then gets involved in a conspiracy site on the internet called Red Pill, where she meets Adrian, who is a American sort of fanatic. He's like a guru, I suppose you could say, for philosophers. He then arranges to meet her in real life, claiming that she has, become such a prevalent, important member of his community. She has been singled out for a real life meeting. In this meeting, he asks her how she feels about euthanasia and people's rights to die, and he then asks her if she will do something quite strange for a girl called Tess, who has decided to end her life. Layla's part in this is that she has to take over Tess's life on the internet because Tess does not want people to know that she has died or come looking for her. So the way Adrian puts it is that Layla is going to become a dimmer switch on Tess's life. She's going to take over her social media, her email account, her phone, etc., etc., and she is going to gradually decrease contact until Tess just kind of fades away. Bizarre concept to start with, but quite unique and something I had never come across before, and Layla says yes, and things ensue from there, really. It's a very interesting book. It was very fun to read, and I think it's quite unique. I don't think anything really like this has been done before, and it's very much about how social media plays a part in your life, and it's quite sinister. Layla is not a necessarily likeable character. She's quite unpleasant, and she does things that she shouldn't. It's a very interesting book. I wouldn't say it's a mystery thriller. There's not much of a mystery to be solved. There is a slight vein of mystery in it, but I don't think that's the predominant point, and I wouldn't have marketed it as such. I think the marketing did it no favours, but it was enjoyable, and I read it really quickly, and it was exactly what I needed. So I would definitely recommend that for those who haven't read it yet. And that's everything. I know, shocking reading month. But, alas, onwards and upwards. Bye.